Most people who walk regularly every day genuinely believe they're doing everything right. They're getting their steps in. They're staying active. They're moving their body. And yet, quietly, gradually, without them ever noticing, a specific set of habits that creep into the way many older adults walk are actually weakening their leg muscles, reducing their balance, and, according to researchers who study this, significantly raising the risk of a fall. Here's what makes this so frustrating. These aren't the walking habits of people who are sedentary. They're the habits that develop in people who are walking regularly. The walking is happening. The damage is happening at the same time. And nobody told them. This video is going to change that. By the end of it, you'll know exactly what these habits are, why they happen, what they're doing to your leg strength and balance, and the specific, research-backed corrections that physical therapists use to help people walk safer and stronger, starting today. Welcome back to the channel, where we break down real, research-based information to help you stay strong, mobile, and independent in the years after 60. Before we dive in, let me be clear about what this video is and isn't. This is not about walking being bad for you. Walking is genuinely one of the best things you can do for your heart, your circulation, your mood, and your joints. That is well established. What this video is about is a pattern that clinical researchers and physical therapists have been paying close attention to for years. The way most people's walking mechanics change with age, the specific muscles those changes leave behind, and why continuing to walk without correcting these habits can create a slow, invisible form of leg weakness that no amount of step counting alone will fix. Everything you're about to hear is grounded in research. No miracle claims, no panic, just information your body deserves. Let's start with what actually changes in the way people walk as they get older. Because understanding the what makes the why it matters much easier to grasp. Research published in geriatrics and biomechanics journals has documented a consistent set of changes that tend to develop in the walking patterns of adults as they age. These include a shorter stride length, meaning each step covers less ground, a slower overall walking pace, a reduction in how high the foot lifts off the ground during each step, which researchers call decreased foot clearance, a wider base of support, meaning the feet tend to spread further apart than in younger adults, reduced arm swing, and a posture that tends to shift forward, with the head and upper body leaning slightly ahead of the center of gravity. Individually, some of these changes can seem minor. Collectively, and this is the part that matters, they create a walking pattern that biomechanics researchers describe as a cautious gait. It's the body's attempt to feel more stable by keeping more of itself closer to the ground and moving more slowly. Here's the problem though, and this is one of those counterintuitive findings from Gait research that surprises a lot of people when they first hear it. That cautious gait, the shortened steps, the slower pace, the slight forward lean, doesn't actually make you safer. Research, including findings published by the Cleveland Clinic, suggests that this kind of walking pattern can actually increase fall risk, because it reduces your ability to recover when something unexpected happens, like catching a toe on an uneven sidewalk or stumbling on a step. You need a certain amount of stride length, foot clearance, and forward momentum to catch yourself when your balance is disrupted. The cautious gait strips away the very mechanics that would protect you. And here's what makes it worse. Because walking this way requires less activation from the leg's key stabilizing muscles, including the glutes, the hip flexors, the calf muscles, and the muscles in the front of the shin, those muscles gradually get used less. And what gets used less gets weaker. Over months and years, the cautious gait both reflects and accelerates muscle weakness at the same time. The Cleveland Clinic has documented that around 15% of people develop some form of gait abnormality by the time they reach age 60. That number grows significantly in the decades that follow. Now, let's get specific, because the pattern we've just described breaks down into several distinct habits, each of which contributes to leg weakening in its own way. Physical therapists who work with older adults are very familiar with all of them. Mistake number 1. The shuffle. This is the most common and most visibly recognizable change in walking mechanics among older adults. Instead of lifting the foot fully off the ground with each step, the foot drags or slides forward in a low, shuffling motion. As reported by medical and aging resources, including sources reviewed by Lifeline, when the hip flexors, quadriceps, and calf muscles weaken, each step requires more effort, and the body compensates by adopting a dragging or sliding motion instead of a proper heel-to-toe walking pattern. The feet themselves can also lose strength and flexibility, making it harder to control foot placement. The problem with shuffling isn't just that it looks different. It creates a very real functional problem. When your foot doesn't fully clear the ground with every step, it doesn't take much of an obstacle to catch that foot and trigger a fall. A slightly raised sidewalk crack, a small change in floor surface, a welcome mat. These become genuine hazards for someone whose foot clearance has dropped significantly. And the cruel mechanics of this: the less you lift your feet, the less you challenge the hip flexors and calf muscles that are supposed to do that lifting. So those muscles weaken further, making the shuffle even more pronounced over time. Mistake number 2, looking down while walking. This one is increasingly common, and not only because of phones. Many older adults develop a habit of walking with their gaze directed downward at the ground in front of their feet, either out of a concern for obstacles or simply as a habitual posture. Here's why this matters from a biomechanics standpoint. When your head tilts forward and down, your center of gravity shifts. The weight of the head, which is roughly 10 to 12 pounds for an average adult, pulls the upper spine forward, creating a forward-leaning posture that forces your muscles to work harder to keep you upright and simultaneously throws off your balance. Research on forward head posture and postural stability, including studies reviewed in peer-reviewed rehabilitative medicine journals, has found that people with forward head positioning show significantly greater body sway compared to those who keep their head upright and gaze level. Greater body sway means less stability, which means a higher risk of losing balance during everyday activity. Looking down also reduces your ability to anticipate and react to what's coming. When you're watching the 6 inches of ground directly in front of your feet, you lose the environmental awareness that lets you see the curb drop ahead, the dog running into your path, or the person stopping suddenly in front of you. Mistake number 3, shortened stride length. We mentioned this in the gait changes section, but it deserves a closer look here because of what it does specifically to the muscles in the back of the leg, which are some of the most important for functional strength and fall prevention. A full proper stride requires a push-off phase, where the calf muscle and the back of the foot generate the propulsion that drives each step forward. When stride length shortens, that push-off phase becomes shallow or disappears almost entirely. The calf complex, including the gastrocnemius and soleus muscles, gets progressively less work with every step taken. Researchers who study ankle and calf function in older adults, including those who have published in biomechanics-focused clinical journals, have found that plantar flexor weakness, meaning weakness in the calf and ankle push-off muscles, is associated with greater instability during walking and a reduced ability to recover from slipping or stumbling. So the math here is not great. Shorter strides mean less calf activation. Less calf activation means weaker calves. Weaker calves mean less push-off strength. Less push-off strength means even shorter strides. The cycle is self-reinforcing. Mistake number 4, reduced or absent arm swing. This one surprises most people. The arms feel like passengers during walking, not contributors. But from a balance and gait mechanics standpoint, the arms are actually working hard to counterbalance the movement of the legs. When the right leg swings forward, the left arm swings forward simultaneously. This counter-rotation helps maintain balance by canceling out the rotational forces that each step generates in the torso. When arm swing diminishes or stops altogether, the upper body has to do extra work to compensate, and the overall coordination of the walking movement becomes less fluid and more effortful. Physical therapists observing older adults frequently note reduced arm swing as part of a broader pattern of gait deterioration. Re-engaging the arms during walking is one of the simplest cues they give patients to immediately improve gait quality. Now that we've identified the specific patterns, let's talk about which muscles take the biggest hit as a result of these habits. This is where the quietly weakening your legs part of this title becomes very concrete. The first is the gluteus medius, the muscle on the outer side of your hip. Its job during walking is to stabilize your pelvis when one foot lifts off the ground. Without adequate gluteus medius strength, the pelvis drops on one side with every step, creating what clinicians call a Trendelenburg pattern movement, and putting extra strain on the knees, hips, and lower back. When walking patterns become shorter and more shuffling, this muscle gets significantly less activation than it's designed to receive. Over time, it weakens in a way that doesn't show up in daily life until something challenges your balance suddenly. The second is the hip flexor group, primarily the iliopsoas muscle, which runs from the lower spine through the pelvis to the top of the thigh. The hip flexors are responsible for lifting the knee forward with each step. When the shuffle gait takes over and knee lift decreases, these muscles are chronically underused. Weakened hip flexors are directly linked to foot clearance problems, which, as we've discussed, are a primary driver of tripping and falling. The third is the tibialis anterior, the muscle that runs along the front of the shin. This muscle lifts the front of the foot during the swing phase of each step and controls the foot as the heel strikes the ground. Think of it as the muscle that keeps your toes from dragging. As walking habits become more shuffled and foot clearance drops, this muscle, like the hip flexors, gets progressively less activation than it needs to stay strong. The fourth, which we touched on in the stride section, is the calf complex. The gastrocnemius and soleus muscles power the push-off phase of walking. Without a full stride, this push-off is minimal, and these muscles, which are also critical for balance and ankle stability, lose strength gradually. Here's what makes this pattern particularly concerning for fall prevention specifically. These four muscle groups, the glutes, the hip flexors, the shins, and the calves, are precisely the muscles your body depends on to recover when you stumble. When you catch your foot on something unexpectedly, your body has a fraction of a second to fire these muscles in a coordinated response to prevent a full fall. If they've been quietly weakening for months or years because of changed walking habits, that recovery response is slower, weaker, and less reliable. This is why researchers who study falls in older adults consistently point to gait quality, not just activity level, as one of the key factors in fall risk. You can be walking every day and still have these muscle groups weakening if the way you're walking has changed. Here's the good news, and this really is genuinely good news. Walking mechanics respond to conscious correction. The body is adaptable at virtually any age, and studies on gait retraining in older adults have shown that deliberate attention to walking form can produce measurable improvements in stability, muscle activation, and confidence relatively quickly. Let's go through the specific corrections, one for each mistake we identified. Correction 1. Reclaim the heel-to-toe pattern. The goal here is to consciously break the shuffle by restoring the full walking cycle. Heel strike, roll through the foot, and push off with the toes. A simple way to practice this is on a flat, safe indoor surface. Walk the length of your hallway or living room, making a deliberate effort to feel your heel contact the ground first with each step. Roll through the arch, and finish each step with a light push from the ball of your foot. You don't need to exaggerate it into a march. You just need to bring back what a full step actually feels like. Many physical therapists use the cue heel, arch, toe as a simple mental prompt for patients working on this. Saying it quietly to yourself as you practice can help build the pattern back into muscle memory. Start with 5 minutes of deliberate walking practice per day. Even at a slow pace, the deliberate attention to heel-to-toe contact re-engages the hip flexors, shin muscles, and calf complex that the shuffle bypasses. Correction 2. Eyes up, head level. This one is simple in concept and harder in practice, because looking down can feel instinctively safer. The correction is to shift your gaze forward, to roughly 10 to 15 feet ahead of you, rather than down at the ground directly in front of your feet. If you feel anxious about not seeing the ground directly underfoot, remind yourself that peripheral vision handles a significant amount of your ground awareness while your head is up. You'll still see obstacles, you just won't be doing it in a posture that compromises your balance and shifts your center of gravity forward. A practical way to build this habit: on your next walk outside, pick a landmark ahead of you, a tree, a parked car, a corner, and keep your gaze on it as you walk toward it. When you reach it, pick a new one. This gives your gaze somewhere useful to land while you rebuild the habit of walking upright. Correction 3. Lengthen your stride. Intentionally. You don't need to stride like a power walker. You need to take steps that are slightly longer than the shortened steps the cautious gait has defaulted to. Research on walking speed and fall risk in older adults, including work cited in geriatrics literature, has found that each meaningful increase in walking speed, made possible by a longer stride, correlates with a reduction in fall risk. Slow, short-stepping gait is itself a clinical marker of elevated fall risk. A useful physical therapy cue for this is to think about reaching forward with your heel rather than just shuffling the foot forward. This small mental shift tends to naturally lengthen the stride without requiring complicated mechanical changes. Practice it on a known, safe, flat surface first. Correction 4. Let your arms swing. This is the simplest correction, and the one most people see results from immediately. On your next walk, consciously allow your arms to swing naturally and in opposition to your legs. Right leg forward, left arm forward, left leg forward, right arm forward. You don't need to exaggerate the swing. Simply releasing the tension that many older adults hold in their arms and upper body during walking, often gripping a bag tightly, crossing the arms, or holding them rigid, and letting them move naturally, will begin to restore the rotational counterbalance that makes walking more stable and more efficient. If this feels unfamiliar at first, try walking without holding anything for a few minutes. Once the arms are free, the natural swing tends to return on its own when you consciously allow it. Correcting walking form while you're walking is important, but you can also do a few minutes of targeted movement away from your walks to directly strengthen the muscles we identified as most at risk. These take no equipment and very little space. Exercise 1. Seated marching. Sit upright in a sturdy chair with your feet flat on the floor. Slowly lift one knee up toward your chest. Hold for 2 seconds, then lower it with control. Alternate sides. This directly works the hip flexors, the muscle group most suppressed by the shuffling pattern, and it's completely safe to do seated. Aim for 10 repetitions per side, once or twice a day. Exercise 2. Heel raises. Stand behind a sturdy chair, holding the back lightly for balance support. Rise up onto the balls of both feet. Pause at the top for 2 seconds, then lower slowly. This targets the calf complex directly, the push-off muscles most bypassed by shortened stride walking. Start with 10 repetitions. As this becomes easier, try doing the lowering phase on one foot at a time for a greater challenge. Exercise 3. Toe taps. While seated, simply tap your toes up and down rapidly, like you're keeping time to music, for 30 seconds. This works the tibialis anterior, the shin muscle that lifts the foot during walking. It's small, it's simple, and it directly targets a muscle that rarely gets addressed in standard exercise advice for this age group. Exercise 4. Hip abductor lift. Standing next to a wall or chair for support, shift your weight onto one foot and lift the other leg out to the side a few inches. Hold for 2 seconds and bring it back. This works the gluteus medius, the hip stabilizer that keeps your pelvis level with every step you take. 10 repetitions per side is a great starting point. These 4 exercises, combined with the walking form corrections from the previous section, directly address the muscle groups most affected by the common walking mistakes we've discussed. You don't need to do them all at once. Even rotating through 2 or 3 of them a few days a week builds meaningful support for safer walking over time. Walking is one of the most powerful things you can do for your health after 60. That part has not changed. What this video has hopefully added is an important layer of detail. It's not just whether you're walking, but how you're walking, that determines whether those steps are building your leg strength, or, over time, quietly allowing certain muscle groups to fall behind. The shuffle that creeps in, the gaze that drifts downward, the stride that gets shorter and shorter, the arms that stop swinging. None of these feel dramatic when they happen. They develop gradually, as small, individually minor-seeming adaptations to the feeling of wanting to move more carefully. But over months and years, the research is clear that these habits leave the specific muscles your body most needs for balance and fall recovery with less and less work to do. And muscles that don't get challenged gradually lose their capacity. The corrections are straightforward. The exercises are simple. And none of this requires you to change where you walk, how far you walk, or how often. You're already doing the thing. You just now have the information to do it in a way that actually strengthens, rather than quietly bypasses, the muscles that keep you upright, mobile, and independent. If this video was helpful, please consider subscribing. Every week we cover one piece of practical, research-backed health information like this, written specifically for adults navigating life after 60. And if you have a friend, spouse, or family member who walks regularly but may not know about these habits, sharing this with them might be one of the most useful things you do today. As always, this video provides general research-based information, not personalized medical advice. If you have specific joint, balance, or mobility concerns, please speak with your doctor or a licensed physical therapist who can assess your individual situation. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.